Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Café on Tampa Online. Today we've got a great speaker, Terrie Rizzo. I will let her introduce herself. Terrie?
Good afternoon, Bill. I'm excited to be here with you. I'm the chairwoman of the Florida Democratic Party, and it's great to say hello to everybody in the Tampa area, and glad to be here with you. We're very
Great.
excited.
Thanks so much. And just for anybody who's watching kind of for the first time, Café con Tampa is a 501c3 nonprofit. So we don't take any positions. We're nonpartisan. And we had the chair of the Republican Party on a couple months ago, and you can find that video either on Facebook or on our YouTube feed. Also, Café con Tampa style, we want people to ask questions. So if you have any questions, post underneath the video feed or to the right if you're watching on your PC. Terrie, what do you think are the biggest issues the Democratic Party is facing here in the primary and then in the general?
Well, obviously the issue of course electing Joe Biden and defeating Donald Trump and making sure we get our Democrats elected up and down the ballot. So we're in the process of doing our organizational work, which we began last year, and continuing the work in this unprecedented environment where we are now, conducting elections during a pandemic, to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to vote and gets out the vote and exercises their right to vote. So that is one of the big issues right there, is safe elections.
And do you see more people signing up for voting by mail than you have before?
Absolutely, we do. And this is one of the, as you may know, this has been something that we as the Democratic Party have been focusing on for a number of years, and actually started to even increase it and increase our investment last year in reaching out to vote by mail. And after the pandemic, especially, we as a safe alternative to voting, and we can discuss this at length, we began to encourage everybody to sign up to vote by mail. And so we are seeing unprecedented numbers since March 17th, since the presidential preference primary alone. We have had well over 1 million Democrats sign up to vote by mail. And the numbers now, and I was actually looking, I actually have it in my notes. We now have over 479,123 more Democrats signed up to vote by mail than Republicans this year. So it's the margin now is over 479,000. So we will expect that many more Democrats to be getting ballots than Republicans this year. We want our voters to vote safely, but this really should not be a partisan issue. Everybody should have the option of voting by mail as a safe way of voting.
So what is the Republican Democratic split statewide, registered voters?
The Democrats have had just over 200,000 Democrats registered than Republicans. That was one of our focuses last year, was increasing our registration. And we began focus heavily last year on organizing and increasing our voter registration, and have pulled back up and increased our margin again, entering this election cycle with a greater margin than the previous election cycle for the first time since 2012. We passed 5 million Democrats in February, which is a landmark, and have increased now to over, I believe it's 5,129,000.
Are there certain parts of the states where the numbers are growing more than others? And is it happening because people are switching parties, or are they moving from someplace else where they were a registered Democrat?
Registering all over the place, in terms of registration. Obviously, some areas are bluer than others, and we're seeing registrations there. But registration is increasing across the state, and we're seeing this everywhere, particularly. And I will say also for vote by mail, the numbers for vote by mail are consistently across the board everywhere.
And if I remember correctly, in the last presidential election, and again, to anybody who's just starting to watch, we're nonpartisan, and we already had the Republican chair speak a couple months ago. Yeah. If I remember correctly, the Trump campaign won the rural areas, and Democrats won and Hillary won the cities. Do I remember that correctly? And what's the Democratic Party doing in the rural areas? Is there a campaign there?
And that was pretty, nationwide. We saw the kind of the pattern play out as well. And Democrats are particularly in the more urban areas, if you will. But there are Democrats everywhere, and I'd like to emphasize that there are Democrats everywhere in the entire state. And so what we have been focusing on is what we call the 67 county strategy, where reaching Democrats no matter where they are, whether you're in the Panhandle or you're in the Villages or you're down in Miami, and focusing on registering folks to vote and getting people out to vote. So it's all about the margins. Here in Florida, that we are a true battleground state, and it comes down to less than 200,000 votes every election cycle for going back six elections. So getting out the vote everywhere is important. So as I said, 67 county strategies means having candidates everywhere running, means organizing county parties everywhere, means having organizers from the FTP everywhere, and working on getting out the vote everywhere, losing by narrowing the margin in the redder counties, flipping the swing counties, and having increased rolling it up in the blues.
And did I read, correct me if I'm wrong, but did I read that the Democratic Party is contesting every legislative seat? So even if it's very, very red, you're still contesting it because you want to get out the vote for the presidential campaign and others.
There was an unprecedented effort this year with the party, our partners, several of our caucuses, in particular our environmental caucus, and others who were involved in helping recruit candidates for seats across the state. So for the first time this year, and I think this is unprecedented, we have candidates running in all but one of the seats. So there will be 140 out of 141 seats being contested across the state. And that means that there will be Democrats running, carrying forth the Democratic message, getting out voters there, and contributing to the overall message and getting out the vote everywhere, and contributing to electing local Democrats and up and down the ballot to the top of the ticket as well.
What are you hearing are some of the main messages that are resonating? What are the issues that people are really interested in right now?
Healthcare. Number one is healthcare. I think is certainly of critical importance now, particularly since the pandemic and obviously the failure of leadership from Donald Trump on down in the responses to the coronavirus. But even before that, healthcare was the number one issue. The Trump administration, as you know, was attacking the Affordable Care Act, and locally in the state of Florida, refusal to expand Medicaid to Floridians, and healthcare is many people are, one crisis away from going bankrupt because of medical issues, and that's only been exacerbated. So healthcare is certainly one of the key issues. In Florida, the environment is obviously a key issue because the climate change and the climate crisis affects Florida virtually almost more than any other state. So that is really critical. And so there are other issues as well. Certainly here in Florida, the insurance issue, unemployment insurance has emerged as a major issue statewide because of the failure of the Republican administrations going back to 2011 when the new unemployment insurance situation was put into place, and we're seeing now how this has affected so many Floridians. So that is an issue as well here in Florida. And on. There are any numbers of them. So.
What about the civil rights issues? We've seen in, I think, every major city in the country, we've seen protesters calling for civil rights changes. What are you seeing as a party or some of the main issues that people are interested in?
Well, certainly that's emerging as an issue. Social justice is an issue, and it's brought an awareness nationwide. And I think you've seen that, Bill, in terms of what we see going on. What we're seeing going on in Portland, Oregon right now is appalling. With folks being swept off the streets and arrested, and so that from the top level on down, the response and the increasing importance of civil justice, and the passing of John Lewis this past week brought that into sharp contrast. And I think many people are pushing now to a renewal of the Civil Rights Act, naming it the John Lewis Act, and Congress has proposed a renewal of this.
And you mentioned Congress. What's happening with the congressional seats? Are there any that Democrats are poised to pick up?
We certainly are going to be working very hard to pick up, a number of congressional seats, and of course, retaining the ones that we have, and flipping the balance. So there are several congressional seats across the state, and also a number of state house and state senate races that we're going to be increasingly focused on.
Here's our first question from the floor. And for anybody who's just logged in, you're welcome to post a question either underneath or to the right of the Facebook feed. It says, this is from Greg Wilson. He said, Terrie, do you see a day when Florida's House victory and Senate victory would move consulting and paid media functions in-house rather than select outside vendors for services like direct mail, digital and television advertising? And could you give us some sense of the state party's increasing role working with races further down ballot, like city council mayoral races?
Exactly. Thank you. That's an excellent question. We'll have to talk with Senate and House victory about their strategies, and I talk with them directly about their procedures and what they do. Within our component, the FDP, we have last year implemented and realized the importance of down ballot races, and last year started a municipal victory program to help build the bench, and that's in-house under the directorship of Lisa Peth as our MVP director, in incorporating training for people who are potential candidates and campaign workers, providing with tools and resources for them to use in running in local races, because obviously it is local seats in particular, county commission seats, local seats on various boards and commissions are critical in affecting people's everyday lives. So building the bench by having people run and win in the local race and then move up, also training state people and candidates as well, and giving them the tools. So that started last year with our MVP program, and we trained more than almost 1,000 people statewide with regard to MVP, and are working on helping many of them get elected. We also, just this past a couple months ago, implemented our down ballot elections department under the directorship of Rosie Gonzalez-Spears, and that is also will play an increasing role in helping get down ballot races elected as well. So not just focusing on the top of the ticket, not just Joe Biden, but Democrats up and down the ballot. And that's
what do you think will happen with the legislature, the state legislature? I don't have to hold you to a particular number, but is there any chance the Democrats will gain a lot of ground there?
Yes, absolutely. We have fantastic candidates running. As I said, we have a record number of candidates, and we had many candidates, almost a record in 2018, and increased this year, as I said, to 140 out of 141 seats that are up. Many of these people are going to win, and especially with the increased turnout and enthusiasm that we're seeing particularly among the Democratic electorate, and others who recognize the failure of the Republicans, and also the importance of programs and values that the Democrats are portraying. So we will pick up seats, and you can envision picking up many seats in the State House and the State Senate.
So I mentioned that a couple months ago, we interviewed the chair of the Republican Party of Florida, and he happens to be a big supporter and personal friend of President Donald Trump. And he thinks that Donald Trump is going to be a great draw to get more people out to vote and to help Republicans win seats. How do you feel about that from the Democratic perspective?
I think he's going to be a great draw for Democrats too. So there are the enthusiasm level across the state among Democrats and nationwide is unbelievable. And we are Donald Trump and the Republican administration here are motivating for Democrats, but also support for Joe Biden and the programs and our Democrats also in the programs that he is proposing that will benefit everyday average kitchen table Americans, and that will move the country and the state forward. So yes, Donald Trump is a definitely motivating factor for people. And I will tell you, the vote by mail numbers are showing. And as I said, we have more Democrats signed up to vote by mail. Almost 500,000 more Democrats signed up to vote by mail now. And I will tell you, the returns are coming in. And usually at this point, when vote by mail is sent out, traditionally the Republicans will dominate the early returns. Well, as of now, the Democrats are dominating, and more than 20,000 more Democratic ballots have been returned statewide than Republicans. So I think that's indicative of the level of enthusiasm that we're seeing. People are signing up, registering to vote, signing up to vote by mail, returning their vote by mails, and volunteering. I will tell you, for example, this year, and it builds off the work that we did for the past 2 years in helping build the party infrastructure. Right now, the state party has more than 20,000 volunteers signed up and trained, compared to 2016 when we had about 15,000 volunteers. So the level of enthusiasm, people coming forward to volunteer in their local parties and with the state party as well, is just unprecedented. We're seeing out there. As of June of 2016, we had completed about 5,000 volunteer shifts around the state. As of this past weekend, and before this past weekend, we had completed over 99,000 volunteer shifts, and certainly after this past weekend, it surpassed 100,000. In June of 16, I mean, as of just recently, we have sent 3.7 million texts, to our folks. As I said, you've seen the response in terms of vote by mail and voter registration. So it's just an unprecedented level of enthusiasm.
How do you think the Supreme Court's ruling last week will affect the vote? And you want to explain that to everybody? Maybe you could do it better than
which one are you talking about?
So on the former felon, the state amendment that passed, the Supreme Court decided not to take it. Am I correct?
Yes, you did. They're not going to intervene, so we'll go forward to trial on the 18th of August, as it was originally, or excuse me, go forward to the appeal at the circuit court as it was originally to do. So they did not intervene or expedite it. So consequently, that was disappointing. Obviously, it was disappointing. But there are ways in which people can, in order to determine fines. Obviously, the issue is the payment of fines and whether to separate that out and move forward. So that already can, in many of the counties, by calling the public defender and finding out people who are returning citizens can find out their status by calling the public defender, and they will help them work through that. Or they can call the Returning Citizens Coalition and Desmond Meade's organization, and fines. They have a structure for fines to be paid for some returning citizens. So that's something that can.
When do you expect that to be resolved? Probably not before the general election. Right?
Probably not at this point. We're ever hopeful, but certainly they won't go to trial until the 18th, until the hearing to the 18th.
And then the big question that's also already being discussed is what happens 2 years from now. We know that top of the ticket draws all the way down. There's going to be an incumbent everything in the cabinet. So yeah. What are your predictions there? What do you think will happen?
I think increasingly people are seeing the failure of the Republican administration for the past 20 years. Florida has been under Republican rule, if you will, with all three branches of government. Obviously the governorship and the state legislature, state senate, state house under Republican control, and we've seen the failure that we're resulting in now. The current pandemic, the unemployment situation, and many things affecting everyday Floridians. So I certainly see, and we're seeing it now, that there will be people will increasingly vote for Democratic alternatives, and so we will certainly see big changes in leadership going forward.
We got another question from the floor. This one is, it says there are over 3.6 million independent voters in Florida who don't get a voice in the primary elections. Do you think Florida should move to an open primary system?
That's going to be coming up for a vote. The all voters vote in November. One thing we've always stood for, same-day registration. I think that in terms of opening it up to same-day registration, where people can actually register and if necessary to vote in a primary, switch to that. So that is the move that we would have preferred. So.
Great. Well, can you remind people of the dates and deadlines to vote? I guess it's different by county, isn't it?
Excuse me. Yes, in terms of the actual voting, the date to vote for the primary is Tuesday, the 18th of August. Early voting will take place from 8 to. There's a minimum of 8 days of early voting before that, and it can go up to 5 days more, depending on the county. So people will need to check with their own local counties in terms of how many days of early voting exists. The voter registration deadline has passed for voting in the primary, but of course anybody can register to vote now going forward to vote in the general election. Registration to vote closes 30 days before whatever election it is. So it's closed now to vote in the primary, but people can still register to vote in the general election. So on the 18th, Tuesday the 18th, the polls hopefully will be open for the primary. Minimum 8 days up to an additional 5 in each county, depending on what the county decides to do for early voting. Vote by mail, the mail ballots have gone out now, although people can still sign up to vote by mail if they like, and I would encourage everybody to do that as an insurance policy, so that vote by mail, the deadline for signing up to vote by mail to receive a mail ballot before that is 10 days before the election. So therefore the 8th of August, to sign up for vote by mail, and then get them back in. And I'd like to remind everybody, in terms of vote by mails, make sure that if you're voting by mail, that you sign and date the back of the envelope, and return it as soon as possible. That if in fact there are some issues, that the supervisor of elections can contact, and these can be cured or corrected. So and again, we encourage everybody, regardless of party, to sign up for vote by mail. It is a safe and healthy thing to do now, and we never know. As I said, you don't know what's going to happen at the polls, and it's certainly in the pandemic that we're in now. Many people are maybe concerned about going to the polls. So voting by mail eliminates that necessity. It's easier. And we do know that in terms of vote by mail, that people also vote down ballot in greater numbers, when they get vote by mails, when they have mail ballots, because they have the time to research, and it makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You get a sample ballot, and I would encourage everybody, please look at the sample ballot, do some research, because as you start to get past the names that you've heard of, the judges are really important, and we need to make sure people pay attention to them, because we talk about civil rights. Yeah. We pick the wrong judges, you're really in trouble. PJ Somerville, who's the Café on Tampa president, but also a volunteer poll worker with the supervisor election. She said that Hillsborough County has 14 days of early voting, August 3rd through 16th. And just in case anybody's looking for the first time, you can vote by mail, which means you put it in an envelope, sign it, send it. You can go to early voting. It doesn't mean every precinct is open, but there are certain places you can go to and you can vote in person there, or you can go on election day. And we had a video from supervisor election last week. Anybody can watch all the details, but if I remember correctly, you can also, even if you get a vote by mail, if you haven't voted, you can still vote in person, right?
Correct. If your first vote counts, whatever it is. So if you mail your ballot in and it's counted, you can't vote at the polls. But if you have a ballot and haven't voted, haven't returned it, then you can go to the polls and vote. So in other words, so you can, in other words, it's eliminated, and you go vote live. That happened to me a couple years ago when I spilled something on my vote by mail ballot, and destroyed it. So I ended up going to early voting, instead. So instead of sending it in. Also, with regard to vote by mail. People can drop off their voted ballots at any of the early voting sites, for example. And they will have drop boxes at these, for dropping off voted vote by mails. Mail is in some of the counties is postage paid return, but you can always put them in the mail, and the ballot will be accepted and delivered to the supervisors of elections, or you can drop it off personally. And as I say, it's an insurance. You can, if you choose to vote by mail, that's terrific, and many people will do so. But you also can, if you don't vote the ballot, you can go and vote live at the polls.
A question from a viewer in Orlando says, do you think District 8 will be held by Darren Soto?
Of course I do. So, yes. Darren Soto, Congressman Soto, has been a terrific congressman, and he's represented his district exceptionally well. And I think absolutely that Congressman Soto will be returning to Washington. We have a terrific delegation, I will add. Our Democratic delegation is great, and we're looking to increase it. Right now, the split is 14-13 in terms of the delegation, and we want to increase the Democratic delegation and flip that as well. The other thing I want to remind people while we're at it is to complete the census. The census is really important. If you have not completed the census, please do so, because so much is dependent on how many people in Florida complete the census. We are potentially in line to pick up 1, if not 2, more congressional seats, depending on the population. But it's going to depend on how many people actually complete the census. So, and Florida is behind the rest of the country right now in terms of, in large part because of the coronavirus situation here, the crisis that we're in Florida, and many people so we're behind, and we need to make sure that everybody completes the census.
What do you mentioned the congressional races? Which ones do you think are the closest that we should watch? What are the interesting ones?
There are a it's hard to pick out. There are a number of them. I mean, we certainly have one in your area, where we have a Democratic primary coming up, in August. We have the Margaret Good seat, down in Sarasota, the area against Vern Buchanan. There are several other. I hate to pick them out. Up in Jacksonville, there are, and again, there are so many, but there are numbers. In Congressional District 4, Donna Deegan is running for the seat up in Congressional District 4, in the Jacksonville area. That's one perhaps to watch. So that there, as I said, I hate to pick them out because there are so many. Congressional District 1, which is Matt Gaetz's district. As I always say, Gaetz got to go, and so that's one that a number of people will be watching as well. So there are just so many, around the state. As I said, I could literally go to each and every one of the congressional districts and point them out.
And stop me if you don't feel comfortable answering this question, but there's a lot of speculation about people that might be statewide candidates in 2 years, like Mayor Kreisman in St. Pete, Mayor Castor in Tampa, and others. Any other names that you're willing to throw out?
There are lots of names, and what I will say is we have a wealth of candidates now. I mean, everybody used to say that the Democrats don't have a bench. Boy, do we have a bench now, and we have a number of candidates who will be coming forward. But what I would like to say is we need to focus on this year's election first. We need to focus on winning in 2020 and making sure that we get our Democrats elected up and down the ballot, and then after that turn our attention to 2022. And so in essence, it's the short game now, which is building, as we have done over the past 2 years, if you will, to build the infrastructure and to build the party apparatus and to get everything ready for the Biden campaign coming in. Have everybody organized and operating at full cylinder and running right through the finish line in November. Elect Democrats up and down the ballot, including Joe Biden for president, and then continue right on going into 2022. So that is in essence what we are doing and what we're building to do. So.
By the way, PJ says that early voting for the general election is October 19th through November 1st. Right. And then Greg Wilson says that Pinellas County primary is August 8th through August 16th. And then the general is October 19th through November 1st. We're in our last couple of minutes. Any closing comments, any websites that you want people to go to, any way people can sign up if they're interested?
Okay, several things. Number one is people are not registered to vote. Again, it's too late to register for primary, but if you're not registered to vote, go to register to vote Florida, written out, .gov. So it's all written out, register to vote Florida.gov to register to vote and get yourself registered for the November 3rd election. So that's number one. Number two, to sign up for vote by mail, you can sign up through the Democratic Party website and be connected to your own local supervisor of elections. So that's fl.dems.vote/mail. So it's fl.dems.vote/mail. So that, and if you want to sign up to vote by mail in any of the counties, go there and you'll be connected to your own local supervisor of elections to sign up to vote by mail. To sign up to volunteer, well, Hillsborough County and Pinellas County and your other county parties have great volunteer operations. And so I would suggest, first, going with your local parties and volunteer there. And also, if you can also sign up through the Florida Democratic Party website, which is Florida Dems, again, all written out, FLORIDA, Dems.org. So FloridaDems.org. Yeah. So, but by all means, the important thing is get up and get active. It's important. This is not the year to sit out, and not the year, as President Obama famously said, don't complain, vote, don't boo, vote. So so get out and get active. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing this remotely. Thank you also to Ione Townsend, the local chair of the Democratic Party, who set this up. And one thing that I forgot to mention is, please share this with your Facebook feed or Twitter feed, because we do this as a public service so that people get information. And we also have a YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and look up Café on Tampa, please subscribe, and that way you'll be able to see all the videos. And later today or tomorrow, Terrie's video will be up there. You can share. And also, if you're Republican or interested in what her Republican counterpart had to say, his video is on YouTube as well. So thank you very much, Terrie. Look forward to getting an update from you maybe next year as we get into the
Love to, Bill. Thank you. Anytime. We'll be back. Thank you so much. And bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.